Hi. So one of the traits that we often share as dyspraxic people is that we are very hardworking, and so that's what I want to talk about, and I'm going to try and stay on topic because I've got so many different things I want to say, and I couldn't decide where to start, but if I don't start somewhere, this video is just never going to happen, so I'm just going to give it a try and hope for the best. Right, so we have to work very hard. So an example, and I think I read this example somewhere, but it's quite a good one if I can explain it properly, which is that, I don't have a pen to hand, but you know, if you write something and you just write, presumably you're just writing it, but when you have dyspraxia, which I do, when you're writing, you can't just think about what you're writing because you have to also be concentrating on how you're holding the pen and where it's making the marks on the paper. It never becomes automatic. So we always have to sort of try really, really hard, even just to write a word, because it's sort of like how our arm is moving, how our hand is moving, and whether it comes out right on the paper or whether we've sort of just done a weird squiggle, which was supposed to be the letter R. It can go wrong very easily. So that's an example with writing, so of like, as a dyspraxic, what it can feel like when you're trying to write something. And there was another example along these lines that I was thinking of. Let me just see if I can remember it, because I was thinking about this morning. I don't know. Yeah, so we are used to having to try really hard. Oh, I know, shoelaces. Right, so my daughter asks me to tie her shoelaces because she likes them done quite tightly, and she hasn't really mastered doing them tightly. And I was just explaining to her, or asking her, please can you just try and be able to do this yourself, because she doesn't have dyspraxia. And I explained to her that hopefully soon she'll be able to actually do this easily. Whereas for me, tying shoelaces, it's very arduous. I think that's the word. It's like very, it's kind of a strenuous activity. Anything is. Because I have to focus so hard. I've never just sort of like done up my shoes and it's done. I have to sort of like, every single time I would do it, even though I'm nearly 40. I would need to exactly focus on exactly which part I'm holding and exactly how long it is, and like just kind of like it takes a lot for me to hold my fingers in the right places and just sort of like not fumble with it. So small tasks which could be simple, and somebody who doesn't understand this difference can think you didn't do your shoelaces, you're just lazy. And we are, well, I don't know if I can say we, I know me, I'm never lazy. I'm the opposite of lazy. And maybe some dyspraxics could be lazy, I don't know, haven't met all dyspraxics, but like, we kind of have to be lazy in the sense that, not because we don't want to do something properly, but because it's so hard work to do something that it's better for us if we can find shortcuts and just have our shoes in a way that we can just put our feet in without having to do up the laces. Another thing I wanted to talk about with this is part or all of the reason for this being hard work is retained primitive reflexes. And I'm not an expert on this, by the way, but look it up because it's very, very, very connected. So it can also be called something like neonatal reflexes or something. So with dyspraxia, and I'm guessing people can definitely have these retained reflexes and not be dyspraxic, but it still causes issues with certain things. It just gives you extra challenges with things when you have these. So like some of the examples are one I mentioned in a previous video where, what's it called? Oh, I don't know what this one's called, but it's like if I want to look that way, then I can't just like necessarily just move my eyes easily. It's called eye tracking. I actually move my head as well so that I could follow the thing, and then if I do that, then my whole body kind of like follows along. And it's because of these, so what it is, right, you know when you're a baby and before you've gone through certain stages, you have reflexes like if there's a chance of getting some milk, then you're going to turn towards it. It's a reflex. Or like if you fall or are dropped or something, you sort of like, woo, you like your arms and legs kind of like splay out like that, like a startle reflex. Don't know, no, sorry, it's not called that probably, but don't know if that's Moro. Anyway, there's a lot of different ones, and we tend to have more than our fair share of these retained, which means that our body and brain, or whatever it is still working in the reflex. It hasn't integrated it and found a more efficient way of doing it. So we can't do a simple moving our eyes to follow something without our head going that way as well. That's an example of one of them. And then we have to like overcompensate by doing all these kind of I wish I knew all the technical terms for this, but I just have to explain it from my experience, because if I go into so much detail I'm never going to get this video to you, so sorry. When I was young, like 8 years old or so, primary school, we had a race on the field once, just for fun, like break time. And it was, there were other people in the race, but it was mainly between me and this other girl, Kim, and we were like dead fast, within that group at least. And we were like neck and neck. It was a sprint on the field and we were neck and neck, and then when we were almost at the end I sort of like turned, and I had a lot of social anxiety already by this point because it was so obvious to me that I wasn't kind of like in much control of my body and my limbs and things like that. It was very scary to not be able to feel present. So when I saw her out the side and I was running, and then we were nearly at the end, and then I was like, oh, Kim's won, and then I just like stopped running, and then the guy who was like trying to get us to race was like, no, you were neck and neck, you could have won, like either of you could have won, why did you stop, sort of thing. And then he said, you run like you're swimming. He wasn't making fun of me, he was just telling me, you run like you're swimming. And what I was doing was, I don't know if I can show this, but because I don't do this anymore, because I got trained how to run like that. So what I was doing was like, it's kind of like running, but then I was like side to side, and then my arms were like all over the place, like my head and like everything was just like, and that's part of the reason, part of the reason for that is the retained primitive reflexes, that you have to add in all these kind of extra body parts that are trying to help you to just, instead of just being able to do the movement easily. So the running was one example of that. And I didn't know I was doing that. I was just, so it's like to us, as a dyspraxic, it's kind of like, get from here, get to there. I didn't notice how I was doing it. And it's kind of like just this stick floating thing, or it's kind of like this brain floating. It's like I'm not aware of all this and how to use it efficiently and how to like feel where the ground is compared to my legs and when they're going to land on it and like stuff like that. But I just sort of like know that I'm supposed to go from here to here, and it's just kind of like any way of getting there, and it just ends up being sort of like this all over the place kind of effect. Yeah, so, right, I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to go into loads of different things all at once, but I hope that all ties together, and thank you.